Hello everyone, welcome back to another mini-sode tonight of Inside Alice House. We have a special guest joining us tonight, Leo Anthony. Before I get into Leo's background, let me introduce my colleagues here. We have the matriarch Alice from the Alice House season, and my good old buddy Spencer Bone. So Leo, why don't you give our fans and our guests a little preview of what Alice House is all about and how you came about in creating all this?
Sure. I've been collecting here at Alice House, probably for about 60 years now. Basically, it all started back in, I would say, the late 50s. That was a time when monsters were a big part of what was going on in America that time. They were in TV, at the movies, they were in clothing, books, magazines, the whole 9 yards. It was a great time to be a monster kid. And, at that time, monsters became a very big part of my life, and they still are. And I think your viewers are going to see that as we work our way through the collection here at Alice House. There's a lot to see here, but one of the main components of Alice House is the characters that live down here in the basement with us here. They're all part of one big happy family here, and like most families, they can be a bit eccentric, a bit peculiar, a bit unique. But I guarantee you one thing, Eddie. Once our viewers get introduced to these guys, they'll never forget them.
Oh, that sounds fantastic, Leo. So why don't we start with the matriarch of the collection, Alice, and why don't you give an introduction to her and let's tell our fans what this is all about.
I think that's a great idea. Let's meet Alice. Okay, Eddie, this is Alice, the matriarch of Alice House and the queen of Meridian Village. Alice has been with us now for over 50 years. She showed up on our doorstep one night begging for food and shelter. We couldn't turn her away, so we offered her a room and a meal. And well, the rest is history. She's been with us ever since. It's because of her matronly ways and cheerful nature that all of our other guests have decided to stay on. We owe Alice a great debt of gratitude because if it wasn't for her and her amiable ways, we sincerely doubt that we would have had the pleasure of making the acquaintances of her colleagues here that keep her company.
That's a great introduction to Alice. She's such an important part of the collection. Why don't we introduce Arthur?
Okay, Eddie. And here's Arthur. We made Arthur's acquaintance about 40 years ago on a damp and dreary Saturday afternoon down at the local pool hall. We were playing 9-ball on one of the rear tables when Arthur challenged us to a game of straight pool. We put a small wager on the game and went to it. We knew right from the start that Arthur was a hustler, just by the way he carried himself. He was also one of the nicest, funniest characters that we have had the pleasure of meeting in quite some time. After he took our money, we invited him back to the house for a homemade dinner, as that was also part of the bet. He's never left since. He's perfectly comfortable entertaining those that visit us here at Alice House.
Arthur's such a playboy, isn't he? Maybe we should tell him about Spencer Bone.
Good idea, Eddie. This is Spencer. We were introduced to Spencer by Arthur, our resident hustler and all-around party guy. We don't get out much anymore with all of our responsibilities here at Alice House, but occasionally Arthur steps out to enjoy some nightlife. One late evening, he stumbled back to Alice House with Spencer Bones, his vagabond friend, in tow. Spencer's fingers were covered with blue chalk, and Arthur's pockets were bulging with cash. Apparently, Spencer's is an even better pool hustler than Arthur. After listening to their latest escapade, I knew Spence wasn't going anywhere. He found a home at last. We just need to keep an eye on him, as we don't want him to be a distractive influence on the younger ones.
I know a lot about Mr. Spencer Bone. Me and him have a lot of stories, but we'll get into that stuff into further details in future episodes. Why don't we introduce our fans to Deidre?
That sounds good, Eddie. Let's meet Deidre. Deidre actually came to us from a friend of ours who owned a carnival. He decided to dismantle the freak show attraction due to public outcry over the exhibiting of disabled, handicapped, or otherwise affected individuals. He was able to find a home for all of his other attractions except for Deidre. He contacted us, and we were glad to have her join our family here at Alice House. Deidre seems to have developed a sort of symbiotic relationship with the spiders, however, much to the dismay of Vanessa, Alice's sister, who has an intense fear of spiders.
I ran into Deidre a few times up at the Spooky Town Carnival one time with Jimmy and Spencer. Why don't we introduce our fans to Diane?
Okay, Eddie, here's Diane. Diane lived down by the docks. She was nicknamed River Rat because she used to trap the muskrats that thrived in the area and would sell them to the local fish markets. As that food source began to fall out of favor with the local residents, she resorted to, more unsavory practices in order to support herself. We happened upon her in one of her more desperate moments and decided to take her in. She's been nothing but exemplary since joining us, and we are so glad to have her.
Yeah, one thing I know about Diane, she has an appetite for those rats and snakes. Why don't we introduce our fans to Gladys?
Of course, Eddie. Here's Gladys. Gladys the Witch has been with us now for 30 years or so. She has her own apothecary here on premises, which she uses to prepare various potions and elixirs for those who are in need of such items. We met Gladys in Salem, Massachusetts, and requested her services for a special project that we were working on at the time. She agreed to come back with us, and this is where she's remained ever since.
Yeah, good old Gladys. Her and her good old buddy Spencer Bowen, how they get along so well, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
So why don't we introduce our fans to Frank, Leo?
That sounds good, Eddie. Let's meet Frank. Frank's the muscle here at Alice House. He's an ex-bouncer at a local nightclub that moved on. Frank wanted to stay in the area and agreed to join us here in a similar capacity. He's been nothing short of amazing in keeping the guests who visit us here in line.
Yeah, I know Frank. Whenever I have an issue, that's the man that I call. He took care of the werewolf gang for me. Why don't we introduce our friend Alex?
Okay, Eddie. This is Alex. Alex is our resident undertaker. Unfortunately, unforeseen events can take place here at Alice House that can require Alex's expertise. Alex perfected his trade at Bednarski's Funeral Home in a small town in northeastern Pennsylvania. While paying our last respects to a dear friend at the funeral home, we had the pleasure of making Alex's acquaintance. The proprietor of the establishment was retiring soon and selling his business. Alex made the decision to join us here at our location and offer his unique services to us.
Yeah, good old Alex. I know his appetite for the deceased. Not to mention, I caught him and Diane one night up at the creek bed, and they were eating all the rats and snakes. Why don't we introduce our good friend Catherine?
Okay, Eddie. This is Catherine. This blonde-haired, blue-eyed beauty joined us nearly 50 years ago. She was originally from Germany. Catherine was here on a temporary visa visiting with friends. As her visa was about to expire, she was preparing to return to her native Germany. Unfortunately, due to political strife in the region, it simply wasn't safe. We agreed to take her in and hide her identity. Her presence came with a twist, however. Catherine possessed her own personal custom-made coffin, which she insisted accompany her. We offered no objections, and we refrained from pressing for details. Catherine has since become an integral part of our family, sharing her exquisite beauty with anyone who lays eyes upon her.
Yeah, Catherine, the model up at the Boxo Bones Coffin Factory, who goes by the motto, beauty's only skin deep. All right, Leo, why don't we introduce our fans to Cyrus?
That sounds good, Eddie. Let's meet Cyrus. This is Cyrus, our spiritual advisor, offering solace to those who need it. Cyrus joined us many years ago, originally as a monk. Cyrus felt his talents could be better utilized in servicing the general population. I must admit, many people have found peace and solace by seeking and taking Cyrus's advice.
Yeah, I know Cyrus a little bit from seeing him around the Meridian Village. Don't know him too well, though. Why don't we introduce our fans to Joseph?
Sounds good, Eddie. Here's Joseph. Joseph is our on-site physician. Many years ago, while a patron was visiting us, the person experienced a sudden heart attack. Thank heaven Dr. Joe was also on site and was able to stabilize the gentleman until medics arrived. The gentleman was transported to a local hospital and survived, thanks mostly to Dr. Joe's initial efforts. A long-lasting friendship developed between us, and he's been with us ever since.
Yeah, I know Dr. Joseph. Whenever I need a special amount of blood, that's the man that I contact. Why don't we introduce our fans to Henry?
Sounds good, Eddie. And here we have Henry. We came upon Henry's acquaintance one dark night on a remote back road in eastern Pennsylvania. As we were rounding a corner, our car lights glanced on a figure leaning against a tree. It looked like he was in distress, so we stopped to offer assistance. What we saw when we got closer was unbelievable. It wasn't a man at all, but some sort of a creature, alien in appearance. He couldn't communicate using our language, but somehow we understood him using our minds. He requested assistance. We complied. Over the course of the next few days, we fully understood his predicament and offered him shelter. He accepted our offer, and he's remained with us ever since.
Yeah, I know Henry. Me, Henry, and Arthur were in the band The Storytellers together. Great guy. You know, Leo, that was only some of the family members that our fans and viewers got to meet today. What happened to the rest of the family?
You know, Eddie, you're right. The problem is, a lot of the people down here, they're a little camera shy and they don't like appearing on camera. But I'll tell you what I can do. If you give me some time, I think I can convince the rest of these guys to come on camera and to share their story with our viewers.
That sounds great, Leo. I'm sure our fans and viewers are really excited to meet the rest of the family. This is Wild Future Productions, where your fear begins. I would like to thank my production team here at Wild Future Productions. Myself, Eddie Emmons, Leo Anthony, Anthony St. John, Marie Perry, Tennille Meadowlark, and Anthony White. Thank you for all your hard work and dedication for making this project possible. Please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button at the end of the video.